Oh boy. Alright, so long story short, I wanted to share information with people who get into this game, the few that do come our way. And I've been asked by some people, and it's been mentioned various times, how does my team work? How does this character work? Who pairs with what? And I think this is actually an incredibly fascinating sticking point for this awful game that some of us love to play. So my intention is to try and go through that. This is a bit of an experimental format. Uh, I'm going to do my best to not ramble on, but I wanted to talk about Rosa, some of the things that Rosa does well, and some of the teams and how they work together with Rosa, and this, that, and the other. Probably a ton of tangents involved here in the game, but I wanted to give my perspective as a person who's played this game for a decent amount of time. So, why are we starting with Rosa? Well, it's pretty simple. She's the top left of the list, and I thought to myself, well, why the fuck not, right? So, let's go and get into some of the things I've prepared here about Rosa. I'm not a big script writer, I'm not a big video editor. I kind of prefaced this in my other videos, but I think I at least have some information that you hopefully might consider worth knowing about with regards to like Rosa and a lot of other characters. So I'm going to go through the pairings, starting with we'll go with Rosa as such, and then we'll just scroll through the list like this. But let me just tell you a bit about Rosa and where she fits into the landscape of the game. I definitely consider Rosa, and I didn't want this to be a tier list, but everyone at the end of the day is like, oh, how good is my character? That's fair. I don't know if Rosa is top tier, because top tiers in this game are really bullshit. But I definitely think in a fighting game that's actually balanced, Rosa would be considered like, holy shit, this is unbelievable, the things this character has. But instead, she's one step above, or I should say, one step below absolute bullshit. That's how I tend to think of it. What is absolute bullshit? That's the S tier of this game. And then you have A tiers like Rosa, where you think, these would just be normal fighting games. A player in our community once likened the idea of the top tiers in this game are essentially like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, where they're just on such an kind of unbelievably high level compared to the rest that it almost feels unfair. So just kind of stick them in their own category. So what are the things that make Rosa good? Well, I'm gonna really blaze through this, so hopefully Rosa players might learn a few things, but ultimately this is meant to be more of a team discussion, but it's really important that I, at the very least, tell you something about Rosa. In case you're starting this game out, you might be looking for teams. How does Rosa work? What the fuck is the point of this character kind of deal? So, not in any particular order of what's the best or worst aspect of Rosa, I made a list of things that are worth considering. 6B on Rosa is interesting. Only because in this game, if you can trade with 6B against someone's anti-air, which you might not want to try all the time, it's not the biggest box, but if you can, it forces someone to go into a launch state, which is really good. Having that just as an option can be really nice. If someone is like holding jump against you and you want to do some really hard callouts, things like that, or if someone's jumping out against you and you run up and kind of tap 5A or 2A and you see them flip out, and if you do it quick enough and they're in the corner, you can tag them with that 6B, reload your gun, possibly meta declare into your ability on knockdown, all sorts of great shit. But having that as an option is great. I guarantee there are plenty of characters in this game who would love to have something that can take a person who's uh, in Kusoge, true Kusoge fashion, like Actress again, other fighting games. Sometimes holding jump is the best way out, but against good players, they'll tag you with something like an A or a meaty, but they don't necessarily get anything off it. You still get to land and just go back to blocking. Rosa is a character that theoretically can use 6B to force some of those situations, but not always. It's just an interesting move. The other thing about Rosa is that her 5C, those double kicks, are just extraordinary. Oh, they're absolutely lovely. In fact, I wasn't going to go into the trading mode to show this, but I may as well since I have the controller in my hand and I'm here. This is the 6B, not exactly the biggest move. I'm going to keep this sound pretty low because it is very distracting. Right, so 6B here, not the biggest move, but it is something. Whereas an actual good neutral game move is the 5C. In this game, parry touch exists, so you don't just want to run up to people on 5C. But the fact that she is a character that has an option that can really play with some of the greatest normals in the game, like Erika 2B, Lucy 2B, Battler 3B, those kind of moves, says something. Not too many people could be like, I feel like I have a decent chance at running up to this character and tagging them with 5C. So, it's a great box for that. One of the biggest things here about Rosa is her ability. Now, Rosa is unbelievably good due to this ability. And, to those that don't know, Rosa's ability forces your partner to not be in use for, I believe it's 8 or 10 seconds. I don't remember the exact timing, but I believe it's 8 to 10, I want to say. Maybe it's closer to 6. I'm not a big Rosa player, and when she's fighting me, I just kind of accept that now I have to box with Rosa, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The reason why Rosa's ability is good, one of the best in the game, in fact, is essentially you can force people to be inefficient. And that's what happens against the characters that are good at dealing with Rosa. At the worst, what Rosa's ability does is she beats the shit out of you. Someone on her team, or her, does a combo. They throw you, and then I believe they meta-declare when you're on the ground, at least in Rosa's case. They have some sort of goofy setup, and then they detach you so that when after you're done being stun comboed, you now have your 8 or however long detachment is seconds of getting fucked up. And this just means that you don't have access to your partner, so you can't use guard touch or parry touch or burst or assault touch. Now, this isn't really the worst for some characters that can kind of stand on their own 2 feet. It sometimes means you're going to get guard broken after you just got a big-ass Rosa combo that stunned you, which is indeed unfortunate. But at the very least, there's some guard break scaling. It's not always the end of the world, but it does suck, to be sure. What I think the real problem with this is more so that, yes, a guard break can happen, but against a lot of characters that don't have a good neutral game, you're going to find yourself, like if you're burn against a 5-meter Rosa, like a 0-meter burn on point, or a 0-meter Ange, or a 0-meter Virgilia, or any of the characters that just aren't great in the neutral game, you're going to have a bad time because they have to hold more Rosa shenanigans, and these characters are often the ones who want to rely on touch abilities to get out of situations. So Rosa can feel very like, oh my god, I can't believe I sort of just have to play this game where I get dunked on for another 8 seconds after getting dunked on and being in a very suboptimal situation. I found that characters with a decent neutral game, Battler, Lucy, good old Beatrice, Kanon, he can work kind of, not exactly, but he has at least a good 2A. Shannon has a reversal. I wouldn't say she's good neutral, funnily enough. 410, I feel like I can always jump out of things with 410. Ronove, Lambda's reversal, Jessica, when is she ever bad, to be frank. Erika. These are all characters who, when Rosa detaches them, Rosa still has to be careful, right? She can't just do anything she wants. But at the very least, Rosa gets a lot of options against them. Rosa's ability lets you do C moves at a very high level. Often what happens is that when you throw out a C move and it gets blocked, you kind of immediately lose because parry touch can make any C move very punishable. Again, if you parry touch someone's C move, you don't have your reserve character, and then the damage you do is scaled, but it's still good. If it wins you around, then it wins you around, even if the damage is scaled, right? So, in terms of efficiency, yeah, you're getting scaling and you don't have your reserve, but overall, you still have the ability to just win around. If 1k damage or 2k damage gets a kill, then having those extra options to dump some more meter or do a parry touch is amazing. That being said, the fact that at a high level of gameplay, that's so prevalent to the point where people don't actually hit C moves when their health is low because you fucking die. You surrender the win to your opponent. That's fucking stupid because this game is horrible. But that's how the game works, and if you want to play it that way, well, at the very least, Rosa is someone who, if you get the detachment hit or a setup, now you can throw out as many C moves as you want. Some of the later characters are actually seemingly balanced around their C moves being broken as fuck, but parry touchable. Some of these characters are actually the only three that come to mind. Actually, are Lambda, George, and Jessica. The bottom left crew here, kind of weird, huh? But yeah, they can all do a 2C that's mega plus. I think Lambda's has decent pushback, but it's still like unbelievably plus. Like in my head, it's just these moves are so plus. Don't fuck with them ever. But we're talking like plus 3 minimum. George might even be plus 2 to 4. I forget. Some frame data nerds are there. All I'm saying is that if you detach with Rosa and then start throwing out 2Cs with these characters, people can't challenge you. The only thing they can do is jump out, and that's if they're not in the corner. I'm pretty sure Jessica close 2C into A move catches jump. But yeah, in pressure, even if this isn't just in some crazy ideal combo situation, detachment gives those options to those characters with those good 2Cs. That's great. That's amazing. That's unbelievably powerful to the point where a lot of people hold at a high level an unbelievably high opinion of Rosa just for detachment. Like, it is good, but I'm trying to be objective. I understand Rosa is an amazing package, but I do think that she falls a little short of being the absolute best. So, yeah, detachment, great. Even against the good characters, let's say you fuck up a Battler, right, with your Rosa team, and that Battler now has like a reserve with 5 meter that he should want to bring in. But if he gets detached, he has no choice. So you can still kind of beat the shit out of him. It gives you an opportunity. Sometimes you can get a guard break set up. It's good stuff. Rosa ability is by far just amazing. So it to be honest, some people you might even just want to play Rosa for detachment plus she is a good combo character. But let's move on. Ability, unbelievable, great. Do the setups. To new people out there, if you just hit someone with detachment whenever they're already stunned, sometimes the stun will just force their character to get. When people unstun in this game, their reserve, their partner meter, whatever, it actually just fills up immediately. So you have to find the specific setups to kind of work around that. I'm not a big Rosa player. I don't really do this, but I've fought against her enough to know that you have to find those little setups. But let's move on. Another thing about Rosa is Jump B. Rosa Jump B is I used to get so pissed off because in this game, I think that it's really easy, and I assume this is true with a lot of things. But people might say Rosa's jump normal game is actually not that good. But realistically speaking, if it's better than your opponent's, then it's top tier. It may as well be S tier, right? It's like, oh yeah, well this other person has C tier normals or whatever, and I have B tier normals. My character sucks. Well, actually, no. You just end up dominating that other character in the game, which I feel like one of my favorite characters in this game just has absolutely garbage air-to-air options. So characters like Rosa, who are already good, feel like they kind of get this extra little cheat in the air. So I think Rosa Jump B is pretty good. I wouldn't say it's like the best air normals in the game, but it's pretty good. It's pretty active. It goes out there. Anyone that doesn't have at least a decent A tier kind of neutral game is just going to find themselves not able to really contest Rosa in the air amidst all of her other shenanigans. I exaggerate and call it a mini Battler tie, but it's not. It's just me being salty. The other thing about Rosa is her gun game. It's just so good. The character's unbelievably complete without being able to have a zoning shooting the fuck out of people game. And to be honest, it really shouldn't do as much as it does. It just dictates a lot of things, when it shouldn't. You might fight against another good neutral character, and that would make Rosa feel like she's more on the back foot. Against Battler, Lucy, Kanon, Erika, even 410, and especially against other zoners, in the case of Rosa. But despite the fact that she just have a normal matchup against these characters, probably being advantaged, to be honest. Maybe not Battler. Battler's pretty good. But being in a very good situation, she now just kind of has this gun that can fucking shoot you and then hard knock you down and blast you away into leading to another reload. It just does way too much. It turns most matchups that should be maybe a little below average into good ones, and matchups where it would already be hard to just unbelievably difficult. The idea, Rosa versus like Dlanor, it's probably like a 9-1 matchup on character individuals basis, right? So what you would generally do is try to switch Dlanor out, or be very cautious with your approach to Rosa. That's just unbelievably based around running at them and holding a lot of block. And once she shoots you, Rosa, she can still just run at you and like 5 CU that big kick I talked about previously. So it's pretty nasty. I don't understand why Rosa has gun, but she does. So what can you do? My apologies there. Uh, the other thing about Rosa, and in terms of a broad sense, is that her combos are good. Generally speaking, Rosa's combo game comes from her EX reload. It's almost like another meta declaration. But generally speaking, in this game, meta declaration can be challenged, or at least always has the option to be challenged. That's obvious. So the fact that a EX reload has the option to not be challenged is fucked up. There's some really advanced Rosa shenanigans where you come in, you do your combo, you EX reload, you do some 3C shenanigans. There's loops in the corner that just let Rosa pretty much stun anyone in most situations. It's it's a nightmare. The character is a combo character. That's one of their biggest points. If that sounds cool, if you want to add damage to your team, you can hardly go wrong with Rosa. It feels like it's broken, but funnily enough, there are better ones when you think about the absolute top tier. The Rosa's competition in the field of being combo damage character is she has to compete with like Jessica, Burn, Ronove, uh, a Will, Ava to some degree. I don't know if Ava's just strictly a combo character, but she kind of fills that role and can in the corner. Virgilia is a combo character, but I'd say Rose is definitely better than Virgilia. So just being in the category of I am combo reserve lady to do damage, well, a lot of people just already have a lot more to offer there than Rosa, even though Rosa is totally fine from all these things. Again, I put her at still very good, just not quite at that absolute top upper echelon, you'd say. So, some other things about Rosa as we move on. Her 2C is very fast, and as I mentioned, 2C parry touch moves are the worst. Or C moves in general. Being parry touched is the worst, I should clarify. But whatever. In the case of Rosa, 2C is so fast that it can be difficult to parry touch, especially since we all play pretty much in delay, and OMK delay based netcode is not well regarded. Uh, so this just means that I think offline you could probably parry touch Rosa 2C, but who the fuck meets up IRL to play this super niche game? So we all end up having to have delay, and even on good connections, it can feel very difficult because those starting frames kind of getting rolled back. You don't always see those starting frames, so you can sneak in a lot more 2Cs with Rosa, and her 2C is super plus, hard to parry touch in that play, horrible. The other thing Rosa has is an overhead. Again, I think this is better online than it is offline. I've had a few offline matches with some good people, and I found it was like magic. Okay, like I could just see Rosa overheads, and I was like, dude, I could just stand up and block this. All right. Oh, there it is. Okay, it hit me. Good. I blocked it, but amazing. I wasn't completely free to Rosa overheads like they can feel like online with rollback. It's just the nature of the game, right? In net play, with that little bit of delay, certain characters with a really decent overhead. Yeah, I think like Dudley in Third Strike is one of those examples of wow, this guy is just so fucking good in net play. To those that might know about that, so that's what I would consider Rosa. So let's go into teams because this is really what I wanted to talk about. I don't know if I'm going to be in the future talking about the characters as much, but hopefully that's helpful for anyone that's just like, here's Rosa and then here's the team part. Because man, I love the idea of less so the individual characters and the construction of teams because I feel like in this game it's pretty unique. So I have 4 classifications I've settled on for teams. Okay, I want to just define them for you real quick. But bad teams are that being together with this person actively sucks for the character involved. In this case, Rosa. It's funny because you can have like a top tier be brought down by having a shittier character, but you make your shittier character better. It's kind of weird. Hopefully I can elaborate more on this as we go through. But essentially bad teams are when 2 characters pair together and they're worse. Because Rosa is, an A tier character. But if she's on certain people's teams, it might go down to like a B tier team instead of that, right? Something kind of like that is what I'm thinking. There are more examples. One example is like Burn and her air combos, Erika and her air combos paired with Ange. It just means that your ability is, in a lot of situations, Ange's ability that is, going to sabotage your team's damage. Whereas in some instances, Ange having that quick stun with like B.Battler or other low stun characters like Dlanor or Shannon, 410, Ronove is a great one. That stun is actually a really powerful tool, but for some characters, they do enough damage and stun that it stuns them too quick, they flip out. So it's a bad team. The next thing are just normal teams. I just consider this everything's fine. There's not anything that's particularly bad or good about this. It's just there. In my head, a lot of normal teams feel like bad teams to me, but realistically, it doesn't necessarily mean they're sabotaging each other. It just means they're not gaining anything by being together, which kind of feels like bad when you're trying to make something that works together. So normal teams, we're good, everything's fine. They work individually and together, but nothing is being gained. So at least they're not, sabotaging one another like a bad team. And then we get to good teams. So this means that they're just paired with someone that they work together with. For example, Rose is a combo character who comes in is better with 1 meter. So she would want someone that's pretty decent in the neutral game to play that out for her. That would be an example of a good team. Best teams are just something that is really good. And it's difficult for me to kind of tell the difference between good and best teams because I can definitely think of some teams that sort of go in a tier above best, but it seems kind of unfair because those few examples are just really broken. Like, for example, Beatrice and Will is an example of absolute best team, right? Kanon and B.Battler, best team. B.Battler, Ronove, best fucking team. Jessica with, like, anyone, I assume, but probably Jessica, Beatrice, best team, right? These characters and those teams just exist in another level. So I'm going to try to generally ignore this, and this is why I fucking hate the idea of, well, here's my tier list, here's best, and it's like, well, there's things that are just as good, Ken B.Battler being same as, like, Rosa B.Battler, that makes no sense. So please take the tier listing I'm about to give you with a grain of salt, please. I'm just trying to get things so that people understand, like, yeah, these teams are very good together, but I will try to make notes and so on when something is unbelievably good. So, let's start out with Ange. Ange is definitely a bad character for Rosa. Rosa does not generally want to do a lot of shenanigans. She doesn't need the stun shenanigans that Ange adds benefit to, like, low value, low stun teams. Ange just doesn't really do a lot of damage herself. She doesn't have a good neutral game. A good neutral game always has value, and Ange doesn't have one. She doesn't bring any damage, and Rosa doesn't need damage. She is a damage dealer herself. Rosa also doesn't struggle in zoning matchups or need Ange's stun, so there's nothing really going on here. This is like a bad / normal team. I definitely think some Rosa players would say, no, I don't want an Ange. Fuck that, she's gonna mess up my combos. So, definitely a bad team. So, B.Battler. I think that B.Battler, and by extension in this case, Battlers, because there's two, this seems like one of the better teams, for sure. It's not broken, but if you picked B.Battler on point with Rosa, you have a decent team because B.Battler has an extraordinary neutral game. So if you have these kind of combo-y damage dealer character types who don't always have the best neutral game or combo starting or whatever, pairing them with something that's a good neutral game player like B.Battler is, hey B.Battler, get a hit from me, you idiot, and then Rosa comes in and fucks them up. As long as your neutral character holds the fort, gets that hit for them. That's how battlers are going to operate. It works. It's fine. It's very difficult to say anything bad. Another thing, too, is that B.Battler becomes stronger with this team. It means that he can... the opponent has fewer options to touch and tag. Detachment is going to be nice here and there. It's not something B.Battler needs, and this is something that you often see with B.Battler, or the really good neutral characters. that they don't necessarily need anyone to do anything for them, but they can do a lot for others. And in this case, it's very difficult to say that Battler Rosa is anything but one of the best teams for Rosa. I want to clarify, best team for Rosa, not top S tier, top 5 team in the whole game. All right, that's what the verbiage here is. If there's ever those top tier teams, I will be sure to be like, hey, I'm saying it's best for this character, and it's one of the best in the game. I will be sure to clarify. So I'm just making sure people understand the verbiage and are getting decent information. Oh, and of course, Battler's ability on Rosa can just be nice. If you ever have a low meter Battler and a high meter Rosa, you can neutral into Rosa and benefit from a bit of health regen. I don't know if this is necessarily the way you always want to play the game. Like, don't surrender a great Battler situation to hit or to just kind of regen with Rosa, unless you have like a lot of gray health or a guard break or a better meter situation after that. But it's always a bonus to just say, yeah, I'm just getting a little extra health with my Battler. I think that Beatrice goes into the category of Beatrice is so good that it's, and this is something I've had a struggled with this idea of making teams, is that some characters are so fucking good that it feels almost ridiculous to say that they're anything but the best. Beatrice is one of the best characters in the game. So of course she's going to have a decent pairing with Rosa. If you want to play this team, you're in a great situation. You're setting yourself up for success, right? Beatrice is the you know what? You should go to school and get a degree in the STEM field. And it's like, okay, Dad, fine. I guess I'll do that. And then you make a bunch of money, and you're like, yeah, Beatrice is like, yeah, just like I told you. that like, it's just good. What else is there to say? The only real unique interactions is that on top of just being good, Beatrice providing a ability to Rosa is nice. I don't think that Rosa's ever going to not want an extra meter. I also don't think that Rosa necessarily benefits from Beatrice's put up towers and everyone gets meter. I have some congestion. This is awful. Setup, which means that it's fine, and Beatrice is just good, and Rosa's just going to be even better. So it's boring. Beatrice is kind of a boring character, but what else can you do, right? Detachment on Beatrice is just going to make an already top tier character even more frustrating to play against. So, hey, it works. Ooh. Let us talk about Lucy Rosa. Oh, I don't know if I directly said this, but Beatrice and Rosa, one of the best teams for Rosa. Lucy Rosa. So I'm a big Lucy fan. I think that Lucy is an interesting character. And I definitely know people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. But Lucy is essentially a good neutral character. I don't think she quite compares to Battler and Erika in terms of, because Battler and Erika, best neutral, unbelievably so, right? Maybe Burn when she has a cat and Kakara's out, but at least Burn needs that setup. But I think those characters can kind of compete with each other. And Lucy's, one step below that kind of amazing best neutral, but she can feel overwhelming because only 2 or 3 people have better neutral than her. So she has a good neutral game compared to most of the cast. And if you do standing combos with Lucy, her ability of attack touch, giving you an extra attack touch, means that she just ends up adding a lot of standing confirmed damage to teams while being pretty aggressive and fast for the cost of having a neutral game. Thing is, her mix-up isn't super good, but Rosa brings that mix-up to the team. Lucy can sometimes just kind of get a hit. And unfortunately, when you do standing confirms instead of confirms where people's feet are off the ground or when the character's in the air, because those can't be bursted. This means that Lucifer can just, and a lot of times, throw out a few more C moves and pressure if she gets into those situations. And she's going to have a reserve that's really solid. Someone that benefits from Lucy going in, getting a hit, doing a standing confirm. It's great. It's amazing. This is one of the best teams for Rosa. If you happen to be a Lucy enjoyer, if you can pilot the Lucy pretty well, this works. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's like, oh, well, is Lucy better than Battler? I kind of think so in this case because Rosa gives that standing confirm extra boost, really maximizing Lucy's ability and strong grounded combo game to add even more damage to a character That is to say, Lucy adding more damage to Rosa, who is already like a damage character, and Rosa, again, helping with Lucy. You find yourself with a decent chunk of extra damage, a lot of flexibility with attack touch, as well as Rosa's just EX reload and meta declarations. One of the best things about Lucy is that a meta declaration on Lucy can end, usually, not always, but almost always end in a Rosa combo, or vice versa, depending on where you want things to be. You get a lot of flexibility with how you want to move your characters around. I love Lucy. She's great. Good team. Ooh, Virgilia and Rosa. So this is rough because Virgilia is the let me stay in the back, please, and I sort of feel like a real character if things go well enough for me. So this sort of immediately excludes Virgilia from being a on-point character, which means that Rosa has to be on point, which it's not like Rosa's horrible at being on point. It's just that that's not where Rosa is ideal. So why would you set up a team where you put Virgilia on a team where Rosa has to do a lot of carrying? It's fine. I sort of put Leah in bad. If you're just an amazing Leah player, though, with really good fundamentals, you might find yourself struggling against other amazing players that know what to do against Leah and how to bully her and punish her. But Leah can work. I would definitely say this is a team where Rosa needs to be on point first with Leah in the back, because you might just find some matchups to be really hard to play with with Leah on point at like 0-0, which is when both characters have 0 meter at the start of a round and 0 in reserve. 0-0 is what I've taken to calling that. Willardo. So I'm going to just say that I don't know Willardo. Good old Willardo H. Raito is... I know how he works, but he has... Willard's EX, or I'm sorry, his ability just means that some characters have weird interactions. I don't know if Rosa has a weird interaction with him. Fuck me. It's just so difficult to keep up with all those things. But the fact of the matter is that Will is one of the best characters in the game, kind of like Beatrice. And it's very difficult for Will to go on a team and be like, no, yeah, this isn't one of the best pairings, because Will's one of the best characters in the game. Willard just adds damage. I wouldn't say that in terms of team construction, being the big combo damage dealer guy, it's fine, but you kind of already have Rosa. So I think in some instances you may want a more neutral focused character like B.Battler, Erika, Lucy, something like that to play with your Rosa. But if you just like Will and just want to be good, yeah, just pick up Will, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Just play Will and win the game. And it's hard to say that this isn't just good. But they don't really do anything that's pretty amazing. I think that Will probably likes Rosa detachment setups, though, so that works. But, yeah, not much to say about Will and Beatrice. They're just good characters. Whatever. I'd actually put Kanon in the good instead of best tier. By the way, Will's best tier for Rosa. Good is fine. It means that things are working. They're just not the best. I try to ignore individual character strength, but it's kind of difficult. Kanon and his ability means that just rushing down and doing stuff like that is good. Thankfully, with detachment, it means Kanon can get away by throwing a lot more C moves into wolf jumps. So this works to kind of buff Kanon. I do think it takes Rosa down. Not too much, but that Kanon doesn't add a lot to Rosa, other than being the, hey, I'm Mr. Reliable. I have the neutral game. I can get a hit for Rosa sometimes and lead into something for her. So I put this team at good, but not the best. If you like this team, it works. It's fine. Kanon and all this, it's fine. It's pretty close to being one of her better teams, or one of the best teams you can play. But I do think that Kanon doesn't quite add a lot to this. But it's totally fine. This is not a bad team. It's just not as good as something like, I think, B.Battler. But if you're a Kanon enjoyer like myself, you can make this team work. Kanon's very versatile. Rosa and Shannon, not much to say here. We just have a situation of they're both doing their own thing, and that's that. Shannon doesn't particularly benefit, even from the amazing ability that is Rosa's detachment. It's not like it's going to hurt you, but I don't think Shannon gets away with anything that she wouldn't without detachment. So, And sure as fuck, Rosa doesn't get shit from Shannon. In fact, Rosa would prefer her partner provide more than Shannon, but it's not like Shannon is actively harming her. Not a lot to say here. It's unfortunate. I love playing Shannon, but yeah. In this case, B.Battler is interchangeable with Battler. This isn't always the case, but in this case it is. What to say about Ava? She is essentially better Rosa. Same archetype. I'm not the best at neutral, but I have a good neutral. I'm good at set play. I have good damage and combos and mix-up. But I'm just better at it in every way than Rosa. So playing these two characters is kind of like just playing two Rosas. They operate differently, but they have the mix-up. They have the sneaky shit. Ava has unbelievably good defensive options. So does Rosa, by the way. I didn't even mention that. Like the kick and the gold spin, both good defensive options. Ava has an even better one. It's just a 0-frame command grab, which is invincible. So, yeah, that's Ava. Just better Rosa. And I think when you compare Ava to Rosa, it's kind of the reason why Rosa isn't S tier, because Ava is here and she's S tier. As good as Rosa may be, she does not compare to this character. But Rosa is still very good. Just throwing that out there. Some things about the pairings. I would say Ava on point is a little better. But yeah, they both have our neutral game is like A tier, but it's not absolute top tier, right? Like you're probably not going to out neutral a Battler, an Erika, a Lucy. But you'll find yourself out neutraling everyone else that isn't just like a neutral specialist with Ava and Rosa. So this is a pretty good team. Also, because of the way the characters operate, Ava benefits unfucking believably well from Rosa. Some people might even say that this is one of the best teams in the game. Just because of how good Ava is, combined with the Rosa ability, is what brings this from like, oh yeah, this is like a really good team to, ooh, this is a contender for like top 5, maybe 10 teams in the game. Having to deal with an Ava command grabbing you at 0 frames with all of her bullshit mix up with the jelly on you and having no burst option, like that is pretty savage. I've just learned to be a Chad and take my fucking beatings in this game fighting against Ava and Rosa. So I play, a lot of neutral characters generally. And I just kind of accept, yeah, I'm just going to get fucked for a while. But to think that, as I said with Rosa and Detachment, if you're getting fucked on a character who does not take getting fucked very well in the bad neutral game, no reversal, no defensive options. This is like brutal. It's unbelievably savage. So this can kind of push Ava's offense into an unbelievably high realm of just like, this is stupid, man. Like, what are you supposed to do? And it can just lead into more detachments in itself at a certain point. It's savage. It's savage. I would say this is a buff Ava team for sure, but Rose is not going to be complaining when Ava's winning games and playing a good neutral and they both are doing confirm hits into each other. This is by far one of the most top tier teams for Rosa to enjoy. 0410. So ultimately 410 has one of the best abilities in the game with guard break. I don't know if Rosa necessarily needs it. One of the things about guard break is that it does prevent them from parry touching you, and it leads to quick combos that are scaled. I don't know how much this benefits Rosa, because 410 doesn't really add anything to your team other than her guard break ability. I mean, she's adorable. I love her. She has a fun playstyle if you like her. But in terms of strictly what does this team do, it's good. It's not the best. It's not just neutral. They're existing and doing their own thing. I do think that it's hard to say that 410's ability, her guard break, doesn't benefit Rosa. And also, 410 is pretty happy to just detach people with random arrow hits and shit whenever it comes. So this is a team that is good. Unfortunately, not a whole lot to add. Thankfully, Rosa brings the damage that 410 lacks. I'm not sure if it's really enough to stun in a lot of situations, but it's there. It's fun. I don't have the highest opinion of 410, even though I absolutely adore her. I think her better teams, it's kind of rough. It's hard to say for sure what makes an absolute amazing 410 team. But this is not about 410 and my love for her. This is about Rosa. Unfortunately, I think there's a little bit lacking here. But the team functions. It's good, right? Next up is the Butler, Ronove. So Ronove is just one of the better characters in the game. Uh, in a funny way, I initially on my list I was doing a little preliminary thoughts, writing down some notes, and I put Ronove at one of the best teams. Again, when I say best, best for Rosa, not best in game. Okay, just because Ronove is good. If you ever manage to get a stun on Rosa and you can lead it into a Ronove meta, that's good. Detaching people makes Ronove's weak pressure game in mid lane a little better, but it's not the greatest. It's just that Ronove's meta super adds so much to any team that it's hard to say, well, this just sucks. Ronove's defensive options are great. Extra damage whenever stuns happen. It's hard to complain. It's a bit boring. I don't have a lot to say about this. There's some more interesting Ronove teams out there, but similar to Beatrice, similar to Will, good team. I wouldn't say it's the best team in the game, but very good for Rosa. One of the better teams for Rosa. Ah, Lambda and George. They are enigmas. Strange, I think. But Lambda and George, and honestly, I think that this can just. Most of the, I think, when I go over these teams, I feel like Lambda and George are pretty much always going to be put as the same character in my head. Excuse me, I have some congestion. Similar to what I said about Rosa and Ava being. Ava's just the better Rosa. They're both that same kind of archetype. I think that Lambda and George are the same archetype. They're both these characters who play their own kind of pressure game on point. I think Lambda's way better in general, just for what it's worth, like a lot. But they both just play. They don't really do anything for their partner. They don't really need anything from their partners. They just are normal characters doing things. Yeah, yeah. It's weird, right? I think that I'm not even sure if Lambda gets a lot of benefit from Rose's detachment uh, inside of her combos or meta setup, but I do know that Lambda gets an unbelievable amount of value from Rose's detachment during 2C. So if you can't parry touch 2C, you might just find yourself getting mixed up and Goomba stomped by Lambda over and over, which is a real big problem. So this team is fine. It's good, maybe? It's new. It's normal? I'm not sure. Lambda can just Goomba stomp you regardless of whether you're detached or 2C'd, but you're going to be getting more 2Cs in as Lambda. But for Rosa, it doesn't really add much. I kind of put this as, yeah, they just kind of exist. Lambda gets a little bit of value from detachment, but she doesn't realistically need it to function. George is the same thing with his 2C. Of course, he's going to get a little bit of value from Rosa, but it's not necessary. I don't really see what this team does. That yeah, yeah. Lambda's just the better George in terms of archetype of character that does their own thing and has some pressure. Uh, Caveat: I am not a good Jess player. I do not know completely how she functions, but Jessica is one of the best characters in the game. So I have to give the boring, well, one of the best characters in the game. Hard to complain, right? But Jessica, I think, functions a bit better as a reserve than a neutral. Jessica's neutral game is average, maybe a little above average. She's not going to contend with the best neutral game characters. I think Rosa might actually have a bit of has a better neutral game. So this is unfortunate because I think that Jessica is just broken and good. You're never going to go wrong. And as with a lot of the top tiers, similar to what I said with Ava, is that the top tiers are already so good that when you give them detachment, they get better. So Jessica having detachment, Jessicas are never going to complain, right? But in terms of what's good for Rosa overall, well, having a really good partner is good for Rosa. And it's dull, I know. Jessica's ability doesn't do anything for Rosa. Jessica is just a broken character and is very good. Top 5 characters in the game. That is Jessica. So yeah, you're buffing a really top tier character, and Rosa doesn't mind having someone that's really good on her team. But nothing really unique. But this is one of the best pairings for Rosa. Yeah, everything I said about Lambda, just take that with George. I know that might seem weird, but the characters are just wacky individual things that don't really play well with others. And I shouldn't say don't play well. They do their own thing. Sometimes they're disruptive to other teammates, but kind of funny how that works in terms of team construction. They're unique, both characters in their own regard, but yeah. I would say, yeah, everything I said about Lambda. Going to Erika, I think that Erika and Rosa, this is one of Rosa's best pairings as well. Erika, as I mentioned with Battler, these two, Erika and Battlers, are just like the best neutral characters. And you're going to find that whenever you have an archetype of, I want to sit in the back and do mix-up or do damage, whatever, having the neutral character in front at the start of your games helps enable that more. It's good. It works. The flow of that just is nice. I think that Erika's pressure is already pretty good. It doesn't need detachment. You're definitely playing this as just Erika's a really good character with a good neutral game that flows into Rosa's damage. Occasionally, you might get detachment hits here and there, which is nice. It just means that Erika becomes better at what she does for Rosa. This is one of the better teams, I think, in general for Rosa. But Erika is a very straightforward character. She has an overhead, she has a good neutral game, she has good jumps. And these two, man, Erika and Rosa don't have a bad matchup. They don't have something they're just going to struggle with that isn't just like, oh, here's just a top tier team that's really good. So, yeah, that's kind of what I like about these really strong neutral pairing with the reserve character teams. They just seem so solid. So, put this in the best, right? One of the best pairings. We have Dlanor, who... I'm a Dlanor enjoyer. I'm not the biggest Rosa enjoyer, but I don't think that this team really does anything good together. This doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just one of those, yeah, this team exists, and that's that. It doesn't do anything. Dlanor doesn't need detachment to function, and I don't think that Rosa gets any particular benefit from Dlanor's ability. She doesn't complain about it when it works, but playing around it seems rough. Seems like you really want to go in with Rosa in general, so, playing around the defensive ability of Dlanor it's just more of a coincidence that someone might get out of your shit whenever you're beating them, and you happen to have Dlanor's ability on. But Dlanor isn't offensive to Rosa, they're just neutral, which to me, if you're just kind of normal, that's not a good thing. You want to at least have some pairing here. Moving on to Bern. Bern is one of the best characters in the game. So this just kind of gets an automatic, oh, well, Rosa, why wouldn't you want to play with someone that's one of the best characters in the game? What does Bern add to Rosa? Not a lot. It's just that Bern's going to be good. But as usual, Rosa adds a detachment to Bern, which means that you're probably going to have to block a couple more overheads, a little more corner pressure. For whatever reason, every fucking move Bern has on the ground is like plus. I believe her 2B is like plus 2 or 3, her 2C is plus something. Who gives a fuck? Everything's plus. All these characters that are, zoners are just having plus bullshit. Meanwhile, the rushdowners have to suffer because they're old and not up to date. I digress, though. So this just means that burn pressure can be good. Yeah, well, what's new? It's even better now. Burn just does a lot of damage, and if she gets a detachment that leads to Burn having more opportunities to be good, which is what would happen for sure, it's hard to complain. Unfortunately, there's not as much of that good neutral flow that I mentioned with like Erika and Battlers. You're not always just going to have a clean Burn goes into Rosa kind of situation. It'll happen if Burn's just winning. But if you find yourself not necessarily just winning because Burn is winning, what you're going to notice is that you might find it difficult from time to time to get Rosa in. So that flow doesn't always work unless the aggression works out on Burn's case. Or even Burn. Burn is a lot like Rosa. Put me in the back, let me get meter, let me get space to zone, put down cats, all this and that. So if you need both characters to be going in and kicking ass all the time and holding their ground, or one of these characters, they're just not as optimal at it. But it's hard to say that they can't hold their own ground, right? With Rosa having a gun, Burn having a cat on the ground, as long as you have some space. But I do think that if you start playing against really strong neutral characters, you might have, unless you can pilot these characters well in those situations, you might find yourself just kind of getting fucked by pressure that you're not the best at handling. both Rosa and Bern have reversals. Bern's just kind of goofy. It's not the best. You can kind of outspace it on a lot of characters. Rosa's less so. So it's still a good team just because they're both good, and if they get that offensive uh, ball rolling, let's say, they'll just continue to snowball, I think. But if you want to play offensive ball, I do think the Ava and Rosa being one of the best teams to do this is probably the better choice. If we're strictly talking tiers, but that doesn't mean that this team is bad. This is still just one of the best teams because Rosa and Bern are fucking great. So, man, quite a bit of talking. I wanted to make this more succinct, but it turns out it's 50 minutes long, and I'm probably going to talk for another minute or two, so oh my fucking goodness. Hopefully this was helpful. I wouldn't mind criticism here from anyone that watches it and hopefully doesn't have a shit opinion. That'd be great. But yeah, those are going to be Rosa's teams, a little bit about Rosa. I feel like in the future, I should definitely focus a lot more on the teams. That was the interesting part of this, right? Bet those 50 minutes just flew by. But hopefully this is pretty enjoyable for, people who want to have a little bit of information. And yeah, I think I'm going to do more of these. I was thinking about doing one for every character. That'd be wild, huh? But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It was fun to talk about the teams and whatnot. Yeah. Take care, guys. If you somehow found this video and are not part of the community, join our community on Discord. It's pretty great. This game is totally whack, but I actually think it's a great game to at least experience for a while. I don't know if I would I would recommend you commit your life to it, but it's fun for sure. Worth trying, I'd say. Anyway, take care, everyone.